Hi, in this video I'm going to look at 5 different ways to silence your inner critic, and we all have nagging voices in our heads. They're our inner critic, and often they talk to us in a way that we wouldn't tolerate from anyone else. At a minimum, your inner critic is negative about anything new or different you decide to do. It'll come up with all sorts of reasons why it won't work and why you shouldn't even attempt to do whatever it is you're aiming to do. And sometimes the inner voices are even worse and stop you in your tracks, preventing you from doing something you'd actually rather enjoy and might even be good at. So the first one is answer your inner critic back, and the voice in your head, it's in your head, but that doesn't mean you have to tolerate it. Answer it back and tell it where it can go, which might well be somewhere the sun rarely shines. It's probably best to do this in the comfort of your own mind, as otherwise people around you might start to wonder about your sanity. But if you're in a place where you can actually yell at your inner critic and tell it precisely what it can do with its opinions, then that works really nicely as well. The thing is, deep down, your inner critic is actually trying to protect you, but it's making its ideas and feelings known in a way that's not really productive. Inner voices have a nasty habit of sounding convincing, because after all they're in our own heads, so we probably believe them, and they can do their work in quite loud ways. They get under your skin, literally, and pop up at the most inconvenient times. Sometimes that nasty voice can cause self-doubt, the hesitation that stops you from going ahead with whatever it was you decided to try. But actually answering that critical voice back works very well, because like all bullies, it's actually quite scared of any opposition and will likely retreat and back down, especially if you answer it back in the same kind of tone as it's attacking you. And that can mean coming out of your shell sufficiently to do this. If you're the kind of person who wouldn't say boo to a goose, it's probably worth starting at the lower levels of nagging rather than going for the great big ones that are always buzzing around your head. Something your inner critic is almost nervous about criticising, but because it's on a roll, it has the confidence to tackle it. You probably know where your critical voice has the least power. It's almost certainly the times when you often go ahead and do whatever it isn't happy about anyway. You adopt a what the heck attitude and go ahead and, as I said, do the thing anyway. Tackling the seemingly insignificant levels of criticism first works actually very well. Your first instinct, and maybe that'll never work, thought that popped into your head is that these small doubts and criticisms are too small to matter. But that's not the case. Chipping away at the edges of almost any problem is a good solution. It's a bit like felling a tree. Even in the most fictional movies he starred in, Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't fell one with one hit. Well, unless it was a missile. Certainly not an axe. It took time, and that's exactly the same when you're dealing with those critical inner voices. And just like it was always the weak kid at school who got picked on, you should pick on the weakest nagging voice. Except this time it's not bullying, because by tackling and eliminating the weakest voice, you're also weakening the power of the stronger voices have over you. Next thing is change and move the inner critic's voice, and this sounds very much like something out of a science fiction plot, but if it involved a real voice, that would be true. Only ventriloquists seem to be able to do that reliably, and sometimes not even that. But the voice we're talking about is only audible inside your head. No one else can hear what it's saying, the tone of the voice it's using, or how loud it's shouting. At least not unless you tell them what's happening, and even then it's you telling someone else, not the voice itself. So have some fun with this. First thing I do personally is change the voice completely, so instead of a booming authoritative voice, I often give it a Mickey Mouse squeaky voice. Disney Corporation take Mickey very seriously, or at least the profits he generates for them from movies and merchandise, but it's pretty much hard for anyone else to. Those squeaks just don't have the same impact as a roaring whatever. If you've got a different voice that you almost laugh out loud when you hear that person's name, choose that instead. Most cartoon characters are up for grabs here, and they're easy to visualise because you've watched the cartoons. So if your nagging inner critic has to take the time to raise a Muttley type laugh after each sentence, there's a good chance you'll take what's being said a lot less seriously. And you can also shift the location of the voice and its volume. There's absolutely no rule that says your inner critic has to be perched on your shoulder yelling at you through a megaphone. You could just as easily make a case for that voice to be coming from under your big toe and yelping with each pace you take as it gets squashed. Again, the only rules are the ones you're making up. Turn this into a game and you'll be rewarded with less hassle from your inner critic and a slightly quieter life. The other thing that's fun to do is put your inner critic inside a catapult. Remember, it's your imagination here. So the catapult can be nice and powerful, its aim can be precise, and the distance it can send its missile, your inner critic, can be as far and as fast as you like, even if every time you've personally used a catapult in real life, the missile ends up going backwards. Personally, I quite like to send my inner critic on a fast voyage to the centre of the sun. Again, pure fiction, so the journey doesn't take the 8 minutes it takes light to reach us. It's over in seconds, and I can hear the "oh no's" as they happen, as well as the satisfying sizzling noise once my inner critic reaches their final destination and fries. And if I miss, intentionally or otherwise, who cares? The universe goes on near enough forever, and I can imagine my previously nasty voice hurtling through the voids of empty space and getting quieter and quieter and quieter and frozen. The next time you have some antisocial voice inside your head, nagging you, yelling at you, experiment with some or all of these ideas and notice the changes that happen. Third trick is to use affirmations, and yeah, I know affirmations are a bit new agey, but that doesn't mean they don't work. Affirmations are a really powerful way of changing how your mind thinks and reacts. They should preferably be spoken out loud. Some people even recommend yelling them out loud. It's not something I'm particularly confident doing. But speaking, yeah, that's because we tend to believe what we hear more than the things we think, which is probably for the best with some of the things we think. And affirmations can be as short or as long as you like. Some people like to keep them short and snappy so they're easily memorable. Other people prefer longer affirmations that are long paragraphs or even close to being an essay. Whether an affirmation is right or wrong is completely up to you. I'd suggest it's written in positive words. Most of the time our minds struggle to process negatives. A lot of people suggest you write your affirmations in the present tense, as if whatever it is you're manifesting in your affirmation has already happened, and that can work. But it can also bring up barriers, that dastardly inner critic again, and reduce the power of the affirmation. So if the present tense affirmation grates with you or raises too many nagging voices, change it. When this happens, personally, I like to change the affirmation slightly so it includes the words "I allow" instead of "I have" or "I am," and that seemingly small shift is very powerful. It's a lot harder for your subconscious and your inner critic to counter that. After all you're saying is that you're prepared to allow whatever it is to happen, so unless you're affirming something detrimental to yourself, and I hope that's unlikely, then there's not much to resist. Affirmations need to be repeated, preferably out loud, and my personal routine is read them out loud first thing in the morning. That way, life doesn't get in the way and I don't put off this vital part of my self-help routine. Sometimes I'll also read them during the day and sometimes last thing at night. Depends on how the day's gone. Do your best though to get in a routine with your affirmations, and I usually find the quickest way to write a new one is to modify an older one, and that's either one of my own or one that someone else has written. It saves staring at a blank screen. They don't have to be word perfect, but they should convey the intention of whatever it is you want to achieve, and they're not set in stone. You can and almost certainly should modify your affirmations over time. Repeating affirmations though sends signals to your subconscious mind, and in turn that helps send the shut up signals to your inner critic. And then fourth thing, distance your critical inner voice. Most of us can tune out things we don't want or need to hear. There's background noise, ticking clocks if they still exist, cars outside the window, even the chirping of birds. They could all be tuned out by our minds, and that's mainly because there are just too many things happening for us to be able to give everything we encounter our full attention. Thing is, you can do the same with that nagging inner voice. You already know how to do it because you're doing it all the time, but you're probably not applying the same logic because the voice is happening internally rather than externally. But think about that statement briefly. Unless you're out of breath, you probably don't notice your lungs filling and emptying with air. Unless you just had an adrenaline rush, chances are you really don't listen to the sound of your heart pumping blood through your body. Both of those are internal noises, and they also have the benefit that other people can verify their existence, and that's a lot more than can be said for those critical words that keep coming into your brain. Maybe we'll find a way to scan people's brain to find out what's happening and help reduce it, but my guess is that's not likely to be anytime soon. So they're actually the adult equivalent to your childhood imaginary friend, except you probably don't talk out loud to them, unless you're doing the yell at them bit I suggested. Distancing yourself from your inner voice takes a bit of practice, and that isn't really surprising as it's been with you in some shape or form most of your life, if not all of it. Maybe it's secretly a crutch that you've been holding on to, and that goes back to the idea of protection that I mentioned earlier. But the time's come to take charge of your life again, and one way to do that is distance yourself from those irritating thoughts that keep popping into your mind. Like the other techniques, this probably won't be an overnight thing. It takes time to chip away at it and break what's likely the habit of a lifetime, but yeah, you can do it. Take the time to nip the thoughts in the bud, or as close as you can, and don't admit defeat. Will you catch all of them and send them away? Probably not, but over time you'll catch more of them and their detrimental effect will begin to lessen. And the fifth suggestion is using hypnosis to silence your inner critic. And hypnosis, it's one of my favourite techniques to get rid of things that I no longer want in my life, but that stubbornly refuse to go away. The problem starts with our subconscious mind, because it's really in control of almost everything we do, because our conscious mind would be bored as well as overpowered by the millions of small details our subconscious happily takes care of. If you had to consciously tell your heart to beat, or your eyes to blink, or the individual hairs on your arm to grow, there'd be no time to do anything else, and things would get missed as well. All the maintenance and housekeeping work in our bodies is done by our subconscious mind, but it also deals with quite a lot of higher level stuff as well, and that includes keeping us safe and within our comfort zones. In turn, that comes back to your inner critic. It's almost certainly shouting at you because it wants to help you stay inside your comfort zone. And hypnosis works with your subconscious mind and helps it to change the things that you want to change, but the ones have stubbornly refused to obey you. It helps your subconscious mind change the things it's thinking about and shift you in the direction you consciously want to go, so it kind of merges the two together. You've got a couple of choices with hypnosis. The first is find someone local to you and book an appointment. And the second is go down what I call the self-service route and download a hypnosis MP3. And almost every time, personally, I find the self-service route works fantastically well. Partly because any decent hypnosis download has been created by a trained professional. Partly because it's on demand rather than booking a session and then making your way to the appointment. And partly because it can be played more than once if you find your inner critic is getting a bit louder again and needs to be quietened down. Not to mention the fact it's a fraction of the price of a personal session. The hypnosis track I'd suggest to silence your inner critic is in the link below this video. So click that link and you can instantly download a hypnosis track to help you silence your inner critic and have a slightly quieter life. Enjoy. Thanks for watching.